Leahy, and today I'm joined by the fantastic Erin Riley in Austin, Texas. Welcome to the show, Erin.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me today.
And Erin, you did something which is very interesting and time consuming, which is interview 50 entrepreneurs. And you have discovered that there are different types of entrepreneurs. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was a really interesting project that I did pretty early on in my coaching business. I actually was doing it for market research, but then because I work with entrepreneurs, but quickly learned that there are many different types of entrepreneurs, much like personality types. And so through this several month process, I kind of put together some archetypes of 7 different entrepreneurs.
And well, first I'm going to ask you what you did with all of that content that you got from those interviews first, and then we'll talk about what the types are.
Yeah, so I basically just compiled all of this information, made these huge Excel sheets and everything, and tried to figure out what were commonalities, what were differences, and what each type really needed for support in a coaching relationship or even in a non coaching relationship. And through that, I actually designed all of my offerings through that to help support different types of entrepreneurs.
That's an interesting way of doing it. Is that like a methodology that you came up with yourself, or is that something you learned on a course, or to you know compile that database of people?
Well, I was working with a really wonderful business coach she's based in California, but my closest childhood best friend is a social anthropologist, and um, she influences how I think in a lot of ways. And she came up with this idea as I was going through about 3 weeks into this whole market research project. She thought, oh, this would be really interesting instead of just designing what you think people need, trying to figure out and ask them themselves, like, what would support you. So that was kind of how that was birthed, I guess.
I think there's potential to use all of that to create, even a book or a lot of content as well. If you spoke to all those people, but what are the 7 types? Firstly, I guess what would be the most common type that came out to you straight away that you noticed?
Yeah, there are 7 types, and I have been the right hand woman of many entrepreneurs in my whole career, and so was very quickly identified. Oh, that person was actually this type. Oh, that's why they struggled with this all the time. But I would say I most commonly work with the visionary entrepreneur and the dreamer entrepreneur. So I can go through each one. It's kind of long, but um, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, tell us about what a visionary entrepreneur and a dreamer entrepreneur is, if you can.
Yeah. So a visionary entrepreneur is typically someone who they come up with really grand ideas and they can see the far future into it, but they don't quite know how to get from A to B. Whereas some entrepreneurs, they're very skilled at the logistics and all the strategy and things like that. So that's what I would say about the visionary. And then the dreamer, they also have really big visions, but they tend to be such big visions that they need a team of people. So a lot of dreamer entrepreneurs, they don't realize that, and they're trying to do everything themselves, and they burn out really hard and pretty quickly.
Interesting, yes, and I mean, just on the face of it, it sounds like the dreamer types might not be suited to business that well. Would you agree with that, or?
I think that, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that have done really well, but these are people like Oprah, Kim Kardashian, like these people that they have a huge team behind them. They have all these ideas and they have people manage their dreams and their ideas. So, if you have the right people, you know what you're skilled at and you know what to outsource and what to bring your, where you find your team, I think they can be successful, but it is kind of a tricky one. Yeah.
Definitely. And could you tell me what are some of the key frustrations that people are having, and they're telling you, and how do you help them get over those frustrations?
Yeah, I think one of the number one things is that when you are starting your own thing and you are your own boss, and maybe for the first time ever through the pandemic, a lot of people have started their own business for the first time ever. You don't really have time off. The risk that you're and the pressure that's involved kind of makes you think that you can't ever have time off. So if you measure that with the amount of skill and knowledge that's required to build a business, people are just constantly in this kind of waffling stage of strain and burnout. So that's one of the very first things I think of, and actually created a whole offering around it, really talking to people about taking sabbaticals. Like, entrepreneurs can do that. There is ways to do that, but to create pause so that you can replenish and restore instead of just grinding nonstop and then hitting burnout.
Yeah, the hustle, or
Hmm.
some else call it the hustle porn, because it's just like they tell you this is what you need to be doing, and hustling, and it's just, constantly burning out basically. And I don't
Yes.
think that is the correct way. Well, not for me anyway. And you feel much more productive when you are well rested, and when you work to your capacity, and then you go, you know what, that's enough for today, and things like that. Like, people don't need other people telling them to be motivated. In my experience, you've got your own motivation, haven't you?
Right, exactly. But if this is your first time starting a business, you're not used to having that intrinsic motivation that comes from inside and your own pleasure. You're used to a boss validating you externally. So then all of a sudden you have this big mind shift and thinking, okay, well, how do I motivate myself when I am burnt out and things like that? So that's what I help people figure out a lot. Like, how do they tick? What makes them who they are, what motivates them, what's their flow naturally, how are they productive, things like that.
And then do you devise sort of daily activities that they should be doing, or daily plans? Because a lot of people just don't know what they should be doing on a day-to-day basis when they are their own business.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I noticed, and this was through me starting my own business for the first time a few years ago. I would go to different business coaches and they'd prescribe these specific exercises. They'd tell me to build my business this certain way, and they didn't take into account that my personality is different from their past client. And so I have several a framework and several exercises I generally do with every client, but for the most part my offerings are very curated to figure out how do you work and what's going on, because I don't believe in a one size fits all kind of experience, because we're all different, right?
Definitely. And so how do people kickstart this process, where you start to learn what sort of person they are, what sort of entrepreneur they are, and then working out a path forward? Do you have a strategy call or something like that at aaronriley.com?
Yeah, I do. It's called a clarity call, and it is free. It's about 30 to 45 minutes. And in that call, we just chat. It's very casual, go through a series of questions, but just to really figure out what's the imbalance that's going on in your life and your business or whatever you're creating. I believe that both are equally important to address, not just the business side or not just the life side. Um, and then we kind of m- decide if we're a good fit. I'm kind of a no strings attached policy, and I want to help whoever is there. And if we're a good fit, great. And if we're not, that's fine too. I hope people get, something out of it. But the next step would be every single offering I have, we have a foundations call. And in that's when we kind of make a whole roadmap of like what our work is going to look like together. We go through what drives the person with values and with their mission, or what I call it a North Star, a flexible mission. And we just kind of design the things that we're going to work on together, and have intention to grow in throughout our coaching relationship.
Awesome. And you mostly work with solopreneurs, I'd imagine?
I do tend to work with solopreneurs, just because I feel like solopreneurs tend to need more support when they're working all by themselves. But I do work with a couple of people that have small teams as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, I can see that there would be certain people that would really identify with your approach, and it might be if you've had experiences and you are like a little bit lost, and you want to reach out to Erin, then you can do that at erin-riley.com. Have a chat to her, see if you can get a little bit of clarity in what you're doing. If you're feeling like you don't know what you are doing, and feeling that you might be burning out, you need to get onto that early and
Yep.
get yourself the right path forward. So thanks for coming on, Erin.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I wanted to add, I wanted to offer like a free something to people if they, didn't have the means to do coaching. I do co-host a podcast called the I'm Excited Show, and it's just a fun conversation about fuzzy topics that entrepreneurs face. And there are downloadable tools and resources with every long episode. So just wanted to throw that in as another option.
Yeah, definitely. And is your podcast got a URL, or do we go to Erin Riley to find it?
It's on my website, but there is also a website, www.imexcitedshow.com. And we are on all podcast apps of choice as well.
Awesome. Well, keep it up with the podcast. Congratulations on doing that. And thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, Julian.
No problem. Thanks for listening and watching wherever you are. And I'll see you very soon on another episode.